This is Jason Verney's podcast. I am Jason Verney. Regular listeners of this show will know that I also run a couple of different podcasts. One of them is one about filmmaking, because I'm a filmmaker, and also one regarding South Korea, the Not So Korean podcast. Actually, it focuses on both Koreas, but it's mostly South Korea. And this one, which is FLICKS, F.L.I.C.K.S. I won't go into what each of those letters stands for in this particular episode, but it is run in conjunction with my film-related website, and that is called mini-movie.com. That's mini-movie.com. And also, most of these episodes appear on my YouTube channel, either as an audio or visual episode, and that is youtube.com/Jason Verney. So I find myself in Korea. I'm currently in Korea. I will be heading back to Thailand very soon. And this time I was compelled, after spending 10 days at the Busan International Film Festival, which is one of Asia's biggest film festivals. I had a few days off. Then I decided to check out a film at the cinema. I wasn't sure what I was going to see, but Joker 2, obviously it's got a different title, Folie, Deux, but in Korea, I always like to see the posters. This one is beautiful, and it's essentially beautiful because of the Hangul, the Korean lettering. It's just Joker, and it just looks superb. Many of the Korean posters for Hollywood films look good because of the wording. So I went to see this. Now, I will say this is kind of mid to late October that I'm recording this. I had heard different things about this film. I'd seen the trailer, and I'd also, heard, well, let's say, some negative stuff about this film. But that kind of only spurred me on more. I really wanted to see what the fuss was all about. I will also say this. When the first film came out, Joker, I wasn't sure if I wanted to see it. I was a big fan of Batman when I was younger, and a couple of other superheroes. But I mean, we've done Batman. The films have been done so many times, all very different, and Superman have been done and all this kind of stuff. And when Joker came out, it seemed different. And it was it looked daring, it looked just a different take on a superhero or a superhero villain movie. And I suppose, really, this is what drew me to the second one. The fact that there was controversy, that always intrigues me. I also am a filmmaker, so there is some element of creativity going on, or intrigue of the creativity. I'm not adverse to musicals. Now that depends. I wouldn't necessarily call this a full musical, but what kind of got me, this isn't necessarily a review of the film, and it's definitely not there to give you any spoilers. It's more about, I can't quite understand the clash of the negative and positive reviews. And I suppose what I can't really understand, the negative reviews, or there seem to be people that have just jumped on it and that don't like it, which everyone is entitled to not like the film. But from the very early days, people were saying this is not good, this is so different. But I think what we have to understand is the first film was very different. It's the director and those involved with creating the film. It was a new take on Joker, new take on the character. And that happens with Marvel, DC, comics and film versions all the time. There's new takes done all the time, and there's so many kind of crossover films, there's so many rehashes. You go in and you kind of just sit there and you're kind of numb and you're watching it. I don't see many of those, and that's because a lot of them are not that appealing to me. The Joker, the original one, I mean, it was uplifting in kind of an uprising kind of way, like sticking it to the people, sticking it to the man or the politics, it's kind of, it felt that it was a modern film. And this, in another way, is a modern film. It's a modern film in a creative way. And so as I say, I didn't really go out my way to see this film, but I did want to see it, and it just so happened that it was playing at the cinema here in Busan, South Korea. And so we're already 2 or 3 weeks into the film being shown, across the world, really. And I understand a lot of the people that are upset are fans of the comics, maybe fans of just the films, just superhero or DC, Marvel films, whatever. And you've got to understand that, well, what I can't really understand is 2 things. One, that people already knew that this was going to be different. A trailer is very different. So, I mean, if you just watch the trailer, I would say don't even see the film. If you're really expecting something very different, just don't go and see the film, because the trailer gives away a lot of it. Yeah, it's intriguing, but surely if you wanted dark and if you wanted something almost in line with the first film completely, or in line with other superhero films and villains, or how they progress or regress, how they change, then, I don't know, there was such a big feeling in this, the world in general, and the hype, that now it's got kind of a backlash. And I just feel like, if people knew that was going to be the case, why would you go and see it? But what you have to understand as well is what I said earlier, which is the first point, that I was trying to make, which was, it was a new take on the film. It was a new take on the character. It was a new take on the Joker world. And yeah, I don't understand. People weren't sure what to expect, because it was highly publicized that it wasn't to be what you expect. It was highly publicized. So the fact that some people are annoyed, it just, it just beggars belief, really. Now, as I say, I'm coming from a filmmaker's point of view, but the first film, Joker, was different. It was weird, it was dark, it was violent and unexpected, and that was controversial. People didn't like that. They said, "Oh, is it too bad? Is it giving the wrong impression for violence? Is it invoking stuff?" And yeah, and then you could even say with this film, this second film, it has a few courtroom scenes. I wouldn't say it's a courtroom drama. It has courtroom, but if you want a courtroom drama, then there's plenty of those in the world. And if people wanted a courtroom drama, I'm sure they wanted something very different to that anyway, then it could have been done in such a way. It wasn't really. This film, it was only later on that the courtroom part of this really gets sort of going. And one thing I will say in defense of this is not all praise, but I do want to say that there is some of the musical scenes, some of them don't last very long anyway. They are kind of dream sequences. They're not really happening. And normally in a film, that I think it's done too many times in a film. It's done so much. A film comes out completely different. I'm not even talking superhero films. I'm just talking whatever, a sort of standard Hollywood film. And then there's a dream, and it's like, well, we thought, especially horrors, we thought that's what was happening in that real time, but no, they were imagining it. But what I like about this is that these are pure fiction, fantasy. Imagine, these scenes that happen, but they're not pure. There could be some. You could say there's some realism when there's singing scenes. They are actually happening, but it just goes to. Some of them go to completely, a fantasized version or a dream. So I actually think in this way, it goes against what I don't normally like, in the fact that, I think it's quite acceptable to have all these scenes. Now I know that's not what these superhero films are like, but if I go back to my original point, that Joker has not been about that since this new rehash, this director, how he's chosen to do it, him and the actors and the filmmakers, the whole team, how they've chosen to do it. This is it. And another thing, when a sequel comes out, a part 2 of whatever let's just call this Joker Part 2. Whenever a film comes out, it doesn't really matter, because often people will go to see it, and that is why franchises are often a winning streak for Hollywood and for the pockets of people that don't really care about creativity. And this can be said with a lot of DC Marvel films. They know it's going to be seen. Somebody's going to see it. If you make a Part 3, or if you make a superhero meets another superhero film, it's people are going to see it, and you get this box office taking. So, and I think the point what I was going to say here, talking about it being a Part 2, you can always, the filmmakers know they could always do a Part 3, and they can completely change it again. And I think that's great. I think it's great. It's challenging. It's challenging the way stories are. I mean, again, I keep thinking, if you go in to see a film and you're expecting it to be like it's in a certain way, then you're going to see films incorrect. You're going to see films in the wrong way. If you're expecting the expected, then there's not much creativity or inventiveness there. If you're expecting the unexpected, and this, to a degree, yes, the trailer gives some of that away, but it was still nothing. I wasn't expecting, 90% of the film. Of course, I didn't know about. It's just the snippets in the trailer, and even that I couldn't really remember. So when I went to see it, yeah, it was daring, and I already knew when I went to see it, not that I was definitely going to like it, but I wanted to see it all the more because it was being different, and the fact that I am not someone that goes to see every superhero film that comes out. So I could take it or leave it, But I'm also very open-minded with creativity and filmmaking. And as I've alluded to before, surely we've had enough of, rehash. We've had the same films, the superheroes, related super. This is not necessarily a hero film, a villain film, but haven't we had so many that have been done such a same kind of way? Even the Batman films. Who's to say everyone talks about the Nolan films being the greatest, or the Joker being the greatest in that? And who's to say that another director doesn't suddenly make a better version in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And even me saying better version, there's probably people that if they are tuning into this saying, no, it will never be better than that. Well, people thought that about the Tim Burton films. I do wonder where this is all going to end. I grew up and I remember the original Superman, and that was perfectly fine. We didn't need any more Supermen. We had Superman Returns, which was meant to be kind of, a return to Superman. And, we don't need any of these really. But this is why Joker, Folie, Deux, it's just inventive, and I was unexpected. It's dreamlike, like the first film was dreamlike, in a kind of grungy, kind of underground, underbelly, underworld, of the city. It was like that. It was a fantasy thing, and this is a fantasy world in a different way. The scenes kind of add to what might be going on in this character's mind, and the other character played by Lady Gaga, I'm sure you know that. Don't need me to tell that. But I just think it's just very, what's the word? It's just inventive. I keep coming back to that word. Yeah, there was very graphic scenes in that, but again, if you've seen that first film and you think that there won't be violence in this second film, and yes, there's certain things alluded to, maybe rape scene or a prison, there's some treatment that goes on in prison, and it could be, there's a bit of violence. I wouldn't say there's a lot of violence throughout the film. There's moments of insinuating violence and bringing on violence to our imaginations, but there is enough, but it's not full on all the time. As I say, there's hints at it. So going back to what I was just saying, I don't really understand the negativity when the first film was a recreation of the character. I mean, why make a Joker film? Sure, there is this, it's got to be an origin, to use that word, it's got to be an origin film. Well, I think there was a lot of that. And in the second film, it's still going on to, it's still an origin, it's still going on with his psyche, maybe it's not him, maybe it's not Joker, maybe it's Flick, we don't really know who the character is. And it's like split personality, but split again, because you've got this other character. And to go to the courtroom cases, that's the courtroom scenes. They are done really well in the fact that it's not just a courtroom drama. That would be awful, really. I mean, how many times is that being done? But the film wasn't too long. I thought it wasn't. Actually, I thought it wasn't. I didn't feel. I think I might have checked my time when I was watching it, but it didn't feel over long. And it was enjoyable that it kept changing and it kept you interested throughout. Now, I know my opinion is, and it's just my opinion. There's a lot of people writing. I mean, I've been listening to watching a couple of interviews with the director and the actor, and the comments in those are people like, oh, someone liked the film. There's people saying, oh, you liked the film, oh, you must be the only one. And and there's all these bots, or robots or whatever, typing positive reviews in the comments. It's not that. I think it's genuine, and there's people saying that this is going to be thought of a bit like Joker. I think Joker, the first one, it was controversial, and it took a while that people go, oh, they did like it, and now this might take a lot longer for some of these people to change their mind, that this is a very good, interesting, decent film. And as I say, I'm not going to go into the backstories or the origins of all these, of what people expect the Joker to be, because surely, as I say, from the first film, we already knew that this is, from a story, or from a director who takes things in a different way. So that's my 2 cents, to use an American term, of, well, yeah, not really a review, but just sort of trying to grapple with understanding why so many people dislike, or just because they expected it to be a certain way. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. You can find any more episodes at jasonverney.com. That's my website, which includes pretty much loads of things I do: my filmmaking, my film reviews, my talks, my speeches, and what have you. But minimovie.com, but youtube.com/Jason Verney, and the Micro Budget Filmmakers podcast, and the Not So Korean podcast. You can find all those out there. Okay, I'll leave it at that, and I bid you all farewell and have a great day. See ya.